Imagine this: entire nations at the brink of collapse, where financial systems fail, governments fall, and daily life becomes a struggle for survival. From crumbling economies to political chaos, some countries are just one step away from disaster. In this video, we'll take a closer look at 10 countries that are at high risk of collapsing in 2024 and 2025. Which ones will pull through, and which might fall apart? Stick with us to find out. Welcome to Discovering the Earth. Today we're diving into the heart of a reality most people can barely imagine: the imminent collapse of entire nations. We'll uncover why these 10 countries are standing on such shaky ground, looking at economic breakdowns, social unrest, and political instability. But there's more to it than just the headlines. Each of these countries tells a story of struggle and survival, where the future hangs by a thread. Let's begin with the first country on our list. Country 1. Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka has been grappling with an economic crisis that has spiraled out of control. Once a booming destination in South Asia, this island nation now faces food and fuel shortages, currency devaluation, and skyrocketing inflation. Everyday items, from milk to medicines, are now luxuries for many families. The roots of this crisis lie in years of governmental mismanagement and mounting debt, as well as the loss of tourism revenue during the pandemic. These issues combined have pushed the nation to a near breaking point. The government's inability to secure foreign currency has left the economy paralyzed. With no funds to import essentials, Sri Lankans are facing power cuts and soaring prices. Protests have erupted as people demand change, but the political landscape remains tense, and foreign investors are pulling out. Without drastic reforms, Sri Lanka's future looks bleak, leaving many citizens worried about what lies ahead. If Sri Lanka doesn't receive significant aid, it risks spiraling further. It's a stark reminder that even a country known for its resilience can face unprecedented challenges. Could 2024 or 2025 be the years this nation breaks down? Only time will tell. Country 2. Pakistan. Pakistan's crisis is a complex web of economic hardship, political upheaval, and natural disasters. This South Asian country is struggling with rising inflation, a massive energy shortage, and a weakening currency. For years, Pakistan has been dependent on loans from international entities, but repayment is becoming increasingly difficult, pushing the nation deeper into debt. The energy crisis has crippled industries, causing mass unemployment and growing frustration among the populace. Political instability has added fuel to the fire, with leaders clashing and protests erupting in major cities. The flood disasters of recent years have only worsened the situation, leaving millions displaced and increasing poverty rates. As Pakistan's resources dwindle, its people grow more desperate. The next couple of years could determine whether Pakistan can overcome these challenges or face an unthinkable collapse. The stakes are higher than ever, and the world is watching. Country 3. Lebanon. Lebanon's journey from prosperity to crisis is a tragic story. Once a vibrant financial hub in the Middle East, Lebanon now faces unprecedented economic challenges. The Lebanese pound has plummeted, and citizens are withdrawing their life savings from failing banks. The impact? Hyperinflation and a collapse of the middle class, with many families unable to afford basic necessities. Lebanon's government, weakened by corruption and division, has been unable to implement effective reforms. The 2020 Beirut explosion further exposed the extent of governmental neglect and mismanagement, plunging the nation into further despair. Essential services like healthcare and education are at risk, with professionals leaving the country in search of better opportunities. If Lebanon continues on this path, it faces a potentially irreversible breakdown. The Lebanese people are demanding change, But the road to recovery is long and fraught with challenges. The question remains, can Lebanon turn things around before it's too late? Country 4, Venezuela. Once a prosperous nation rich in oil, Venezuela now epitomizes economic failure. Years of hyperinflation and sanctions have left the country with an economy in tatters. The value of the Venezuelan bolivar has fallen so drastically that basic goods are out of reach for most citizens. Oil production, once the pride of the nation, has all but collapsed due to mismanagement and lack of investment. The political scene is equally dire, with opposition leaders silenced and citizens left with few rights. The lack of adequate health care, education, and security has driven millions of Venezuelans to flee the country in search of a better life. The United Nations has called it one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world, yet there appears to be no immediate solution in sight. For Venezuela, the next few years may bring even more hardship unless sweeping changes are made. Will the country's leaders find a way out? Or are we witnessing the slow disintegration of a once thriving nation? Country 5, Nigeria. Nigeria, Africa's most populous country, is at a critical juncture. Despite its wealth in oil, the nation faces persistent problems of poverty, corruption, and terrorism. Infrastructure is failing, with power outages and a lack of clean water affecting millions. Additionally, economic mismanagement has led to rising inflation and unemployment, pushing many citizens into poverty. Nigeria's issues are not only economic, but also social. Ethnic tensions and the threat of terrorism, particularly from Boko Haram, have destabilized the northern regions. Many young Nigerians are leaving the country in search of stability and opportunity elsewhere, leading to a severe brain drain. As Nigeria approaches 2024, the risk of collapse looms larger than ever. Can the government stabilize the economy and restore public confidence? Or will Nigeria become the next failed state on the global stage? Country 6, Argentina. Argentina, once one of the most prosperous nations in South America, is now battling a full-blown economic crisis. The country faces rampant inflation that has diminished the value of the Argentine peso, plunging millions into poverty and leaving many struggling to afford basic goods. While Argentina has experienced economic turbulence for decades, recent years have been especially difficult due to political instability and recurring debt crises. Social unrest has become common as people protest against the soaring cost of living and government austerity measures. Political infighting and corruption scandals further erode public trust, complicating efforts to stabilize the economy. Additionally, Argentina's heavy dependence on agricultural exports makes it vulnerable to fluctuations in global markets, making recovery an even tougher prospect. With inflation expected to continue climbing, Argentina's future looks precarious. Unless the government can implement substantial economic reforms, Argentina may face an economic collapse that could impact the entire region. Country 7, Haiti. Haiti, a country already struggling with poverty and natural disasters, has seen conditions worsen dramatically in recent years. Political instability and widespread violence from armed gangs have left the government with little control over much of the country. The assassination of President Jovenel Moïse in 2021 left a leadership vacuum, and attempts to restore stability have been largely unsuccessful. The economic situation is equally dire, with rising food and fuel prices making life harder for the impoverished population. The recent earthquake only exacerbated the country's already fragile state, pushing more Haitians into extreme poverty. Healthcare, education, and infrastructure are practically non-existent in some areas, leaving communities vulnerable to disease outbreaks and further disasters. Haiti's future is uncertain, with little sign of relief in sight. International assistance may offer temporary support, but without systemic changes, Haiti remains on the brink of collapse, threatening the well-being of its entire population. Country 8. Ethiopia. Ethiopia, a country once hailed as an economic success story in East Africa, is now mired in a violent civil conflict that has led to a humanitarian crisis. The ongoing conflict between the federal government and regional forces in Tigray has devastated communities, displaced millions, and led to severe food shortages. International sanctions and decreased foreign aid have further strained Ethiopia's economy. The civil war has disrupted critical supply chains, especially in agriculture, leading to food insecurity that affects millions. As the conflict drags on, the government struggles to maintain stability, and divisions along ethnic lines threaten to break the nation apart. Economic growth has stalled, and inflation is making everyday essentials unaffordable for many Ethiopians. Without a path to peace and reconciliation, Ethiopia risks descending further into chaos. The coming years are critical. Will Ethiopia find a way to unite, or will internal strife push it toward collapse? Country 9. Myanmar. Myanmar is enduring one of its most turbulent periods since gaining independence. Following a military coup in 2021, the country has been plunged into chaos, with widespread civil unrest and resistance movements rising against the military government. The coup dismantled years of democratic progress, leading to economic stagnation and international sanctions that have isolated Myanmar from the global community. The conflict has destroyed businesses, disrupted the healthcare system, and displaced hundreds of thousands of people. The economic impact is severe, with unemployment skyrocketing as foreign companies withdraw from the country. Additionally, Myanmar faces a humanitarian crisis, with thousands in urgent need of food and shelter. Due to the ongoing violence, Myanmar's future hinges on resolving this political crisis. Without a return to civilian governance and international support, the country could continue its downward spiral, potentially collapsing under the weight of its internal conflicts. Country 10. South Sudan. South Sudan, the world's youngest nation, has faced continuous conflict and economic hardship since it gained independence in 2011. Ongoing civil war and ethnic violence have left the government struggling to provide even the most basic services. The country's infrastructure is in ruins, and severe food shortages have led to widespread malnutrition and hunger. The economy of South Sudan is heavily reliant on oil, but corruption and mismanagement have prevented the wealth from reaching the general population. Extreme poverty and lack of opportunity have led to one of the largest refugee crises in the world, with millions of South Sudanese seeking safety in neighboring countries. South Sudan's future is bleak without a lasting peace agreement and significant investment in infrastructure and public services. The world is watching, but without change, South Sudan could be a textbook example of a failed state by 2024 or 2025. These 10 countries stand at a pivotal moment in history. The challenges they face, from economic collapse to political instability and conflict, highlight how fragile the foundations of any nation can be. For these countries, the next few years could be the difference between recovery and complete breakdown. Each country's situation is unique, but they all share a critical need for reform, international assistance, and, perhaps most importantly, a path to peace. As we approach 2024 and 2025, we must ask ourselves, can these countries turn things around? Or are we witnessing the beginnings of global instability? What do you think? Will any of these countries manage to overcome their challenges? Or will more nations join this list? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Discovering the Earth for more stories on global events. Stay tuned to see how the world unfolds.